Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending. We've only invited a few people here today. This is our first attempt at a webinar, so we just want to start it off small with this. First thing is I want to introduce Alyssa here. She is new to Pixnub, and if anyone could tell by her last name, yes, she's related to me. She's my daughter. She's been here a few weeks, and she's going to be taking over a lot of my responsibilities in the near future. So you can expect to see her in the tech support a lot more. She'll be doing some programming, graphics design, and that sort of thing. So for this first webinar, I've only invited a handful of users, and I handpicked people who I knew were already experienced with Easy Composites, because I wanted to start off small with our first webinar and not make it too large of a group until we really get a feel for what we're doing. And just as a disclaimer, this is our first time ever using this webinar software, so there could be technical difficulties. We did experience some a couple of days ago when we were testing it out. So if you do get disconnected, there should be a reconnect link that pops up. Yesterday and today, we didn't experience that, so hopefully this goes smooth. Before we start, in the chat, I put 3 download links. So if you want to follow along with some of the tutorials and the videos, there's 3 links in there. Even if you've already downloaded some of those before on our website, download those again because we made some updates to that. So the first download, there is a set of 500 and some sample student images. And these are actually all AI generated images. I did that because I wanted something I could distribute where people could follow along in the videos, but I didn't feel comfortable giving out images of real kids and having angry parents. So in order to be able to distribute something worldwide, we created a set of AI images. The second download is for a sample yearbook template, and the third is for just some sample custom backgrounds. Yes, Calvin, I did borrow your idea from the samples you sent me for this demonstration. But anyway, those samples are in the chat. So for the agenda for this webinar is to go over the new yearbook option with Easy Composites version 3. This webinar, the topics we're discussing assumes you are already familiar with batch processing with Easy Composites for the class composites. So we're not going to discuss in detail tutorials about that. What I wanted to do is just take a handful of users, and I think I invited 8 users, but just a handful of users that already know the software well enough to be able to try to get a few people up to speed on the yearbook part of this. It's very similar to the class composites with a few differences. So we're going to be going over 3. There's going to be 3 sections to this. First, there's going to be an introduction video just to show you what types of products the yearbook part of the software makes. And in the second part, Alyssa's going to go over, or she's going to do a short presentation. And then finally, I'm going to have a second video after that that's going to get over or go over how to set up templates or import your own custom graphics and custom layer styles and that sort of thing into the templates, because I know that's the topic that I get asked about most often. If at any time you have questions with this material, feel free to post it in the Q&A section on the right. You'll see on the right side of the screen. I won't be answering questions for the first part of the presentation. Once we get into the last video, I might start answering some questions there, but more so at the end. We'll have a Q&A session. So any questions you post in there, I'll try to answer those, as well as I can live screen share and demonstrate things that you might have questions about in Photoshop Live to help you understand. So the whole goal for this is at the end of this, I hope that you have an understanding for how to use the yearbook mode, at least to get started with it. So with that, we'll go ahead and start the first video. So if you go full screen and play, Alyssa.
Yep, let's get started.
Hey everyone, this is Damon with Pixnub, and for this video, I want to quickly discuss the new yearbook mode in Easy Composites version 3. This video already assumes you know how to use Easy Composites for making class composites, and I just want to briefly discuss what the yearbook mode is for. So the yearbook mode is different than the class composite mode, basically for how it groups the images. So for example, class composites, you can see that the class composites will fit all the images that you're compositing onto a single composite, and it adjusts the layout to fit all of those images onto the single composite. The yearbook mode works differently, and you can see this is a finished yearbook here. This will use the same layout and overflow to the next page when it runs out of slots for the previous page. So you can see if we scroll through, it's keeping that same layout and putting everybody into the yearbook. Now, this mode in Easy Composites does not make a full yearbook. It's just for the mugshot pages like you see here. That's all it's for. And by default, it arranges the students alphabetically by last name and then by first. You can actually customize how it groups your images. And I've got an example here. And you can also use custom graphics and layer styles, which we will show in the last video in the webinar. But just an example here how we're grouping the images. You can see you've got all the faculty grouped here. You can see it's not filling this page because when it comes to the end of the group, it'll start a new page. So you can see we've got this page for kindergarten. And then as we scan through the pages, once it gets to first grade, it starts a new group. And whenever it gets to the end of a group, it doesn't finish that page. It starts a new page for the next group. And that's an option that you can do. And that's basically set up by how you're setting up your CSV file with your group ID column, which we'll be discussing that in the webinar and giving a demonstration in the end of the presentation, as well as at the end of the presentation, I'm going to be showing another video that briefly goes over using custom graphics like we see here, because I know a lot of people are going to want to customize their layouts. And I've got another example, and there's a lot you can do with the layout customization. But again, we'll be discussing that at the end of the webinar. All right, so that basically just shows what the yearbooks are for. And it's going to run very similar, just basically how it groups the images is different. So we're going to go into Lissa's presentation here. And some of these topics that she'll be discussing might be easier to understand inside of Photoshop than watching a presentation. So if you can't visualize something, how it's going to work in Photoshop during the presentation, don't worry, because the stuff that's a little more involved, like the layer styles and that sort of thing, there's a video after her presentation that's going to go over that. And then we'll be doing Q&A after that, which is where I'm assuming most of the questions will come in is for how to optimize your graphics and such. So Alyssa, you can take over from here.
All right, so going to the presentation here, it covers a lot of what we just saw in the video, but this will give a little more visuals and some other tips. So to start off with, our software is 1,000 times faster than if you were to do it manually. Yes, we timed it. And before doing any batching, we highly recommend getting a separate scratch disk, 2 terabyte is a good size. What happens is with the batch processing, it can eat up a lot of scratch disk space, especially with using the smart objects, which Easy Composites uses. So we recommend keeping a separate scratch disk from the operating system, and you can get this for $100 to $200. And then in the settings for the scratch disk, deselect the system drive to keep it separate for the operating system, and then have the new one selected.
Yeah, I'll chime in here too. This is a very important step on deselecting the system drive, because what I see happen often is even if the user has a scratch disk within, like in this case, 4 terabyte available, if their system drive doesn't have that much and Photoshop fills up the system drive with temp files, even if you have a lot of space left over on your scratch disk, the operating system that runs off the system drive will slow down and Photoshop can crash. And this is super important on the scratch disk because Photoshop is terrible about using lots of scratch disk, and it doesn't erase the files. It just keeps adding to the pile. So if you're going to be doing a lot of batching, and in particular with this program, you really want to set your own separate scratch disk, and make sure you restart Photoshop after making these changes, because they won't take effect until after Photoshop restarts. Okay, Alyssa, I'll give it back to you here.
All right. And to briefly go over the yearbook mode again, this one makes mugbook pages like this, where all the students will overflow into the next page instead of all being put together on the same page like in the regular composite mode. Yearbook mode requires a datasheet file with a CSV, TSV, or text file. And the groups are organized with a group ID or YB group ID. And we'll go over the group IDs in the next few slides. And just as a reminder, if you want to follow along and with our training images, we have those available in the chat.
I'll put it linked in the bottom of the chat again for this.
Okay, perfect. All right, so getting ready to composite. Since you guys are already experienced Pixnub users, you probably already know how to do this, but we'll go over anyways. So you want to have your images folder ready with all your mugshots, which will already be ready in the training images, and then have your composite save folder ready as well. And have your template files ready. With these template files, they are different in the yearbook than the regular composite mode. There's only going to be 1 or 2 template files, which will be YB first easy comp and the YB main easy comp. So this one is, the first is for the first page and main is for the main page. Only the main page is necessary, but if you want to have a heading, then you want both of these. So here's an example of what the main page looks like, where you see there's no headers with faculty or the grade. It just groups them without any heading, and then on the first page, or the one with the first page with the heading, you see that you can put text in there. And for your datasheet file, this is where things will be grouped together. This is a very basic example. You see there's a YB group ID column and the YB group text column. They're both optional, since you can just have your compositing done without any grouping. You just have it set to none. But this is what it looks like here. And all the CSV files will be in the training, our training as well. And as a reminder, all the datasheet files you need to save with the UTF-8 character set. Otherwise, names like Spanish names or Portuguese names with accent marks won't be imported correctly, and they'll have a weird like square or X placeholder. So just ensure that you save out the UTF-8 settings. And to go a little more in depth about the yearbook grouping, the YB group ID is typically used for the yearbook. They're all grouped by their grades, and group ID is used for the classes. This is handy to have two separate IDs if you want to do different types of compositing while using the same CSV file. And if you have the grouping set to none, then it will just mix all the students together and they'll be sorted with their names listed alphabetically, their last names. And if you want to put the teachers first, then you can have just a 1 in front of their name, so they'll be placed first. You can see that, and go back here.
Actually, I'm going to chime in here, Alyssa, on this.
Okay.
If you're not using a data sheet and you have the 1 in front of their name, that will force them to the front. If you're using a data sheet, it'll be the force order column where you can specify an exact order. Or if you wanted to put the 1 in front of each teacher, you could force them to the front of the class for their class composites. And either the class composites or the yearbook will use that force order column. There's some videos on the website that go over that in more detail, but the 1 in front of the file is only if they're not using a data sheet, which for a yearbook, you have to use a data sheet. So that will only be for doing class composites without a data sheet.
So to give an example of what it looks like to use it with the YB group ID or none, you can see it here. They're all grouped together by grade versus all students grouped together. And again, since you guys already experienced Pixnub users, you probably already know about different save formats and when you would use them. But just to briefly go over them, JPEG is your standard, which is sent to the photo labs to be ready to print. TIFF, WebP, and PNG are used for transparent backgrounds. If you want to have a transparent background, just hide the background layer, the easy comp graphics, and then your PSD and PSB files are the editable Photoshop files. And then for different graphic styles, this is just a basic overview, but we have a full documentation on our website, and we'll go more in depth in it in our next video. You'll see after this presentation. And now for the custom styles, we have up to 10 slots for different custom styles. 6, we made some default ones. So here you can set the text to a custom style. Here it's yellow for our number 5 default one, and that will affect the text. And then for this style, it affects the borders. And this is just an example of what our default looks like on white and then on blue. And of course, you can set the background color to anything you want. To edit it further, just go ahead and double click on the layer to get to your layer style. In this example, I just made the border a thick yellow and gave it a drop shadow. And then when you're ready to composite, just ensure that you select the same custom style that you edited. And then it's the exact same thing for editing the text custom styles. And for the way our software works, instead of using the actual text color, it's going to be changed using the color overlay. Damon, if you'd like to explain further on this one.
Yeah, so for some technical reasons I won't explain here. In order to change the color, it's just done in the layer style. So this works the same as the image layer styles. The text works the exact same way. You can use any of the components in the layer style, but if you want to set a color to the text, just use the color overlay. And for the regular text color, it can be black, white, or whatever. It doesn't really matter because the color overlay in the layer style will override that anyway.
Thank you. And yep, it's just like I covered on the other slide, just select the same one that you edited for the text custom style. And now you're ready to build composites. And as a reminder, don't use the copy and paste function while the batch is running, since Easy Composites uses this function and the computer uses the same clipboard with all the programs. Just don't use it. So for example, while you're batching, if you want to edit like a spreadsheet, it could interfere with the batching. And once again, all our documentation can be found on our website as well as our YouTube channel. And now we'll go into video number 2 with a further in-depth.
Okay, so I know that was a lot of stuff there to go over in slides. But I think this next video, I can demonstrate this a little bit easier in a video. So this video is a little bit longer. It's 14 minutes. But I do encourage you to watch the whole video while it's playing because there's a lot of information here. And it's kind of a crash course into editing your templates and take any notes or ask questions. And then I can start answering some questions in the chat. I thought there was a Q&A section and a chat. I only see a chat now.
There is. There's 2 tabs.
Huh. I only see a chat. I don't know. Okay. Well. Oh yeah, there is a Q&A. I see it now. Okay. So yeah, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A or chat, and I can answer them during the video. But if it's something that we'll need to explain in Photoshop, I can go to a live screen in Photoshop after the video. So go ahead and go full screen and play that, Alyssa. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the Easy Composites yearbook templates and how you can customize the layer styles and graphics in those templates to look exactly like you want to look. I recommend downloading the sample template as a starting point, and that sample template comes with some pre-built styles so you can see how those work, and then you can adjust those to your own needs. The yearbook templates are quite a bit simpler to create than class composites templates, and the reason why is because they have a lot less layout files that you need. In fact, for a basic mugshot yearbook, if you don't want headers and you don't want special graphics, you just need one layout PSD file, and it's generally going to be a grid like we see here. So for example, if you wanted to create a yearbook that was just basic mugshot pages with no headings and no stylized graphics, this is the only file you would need. You can, in this file, also put in your own background, image, or color, and whatever you have it saved with is what it will use. So it's pretty much what you see is what you get. Then there's 2 additional optional files you can have, and one of those will be a first page file, and this will be what it uses for the first page for each group. So if you're grouping your images by grade, this would be the first page for each grade, and then the additional pages would use the main page. Oh, and by the way, these have to be named a certain way for the yearbook mode to work. So the main page, the one that you need, has to be all caps at the end, YB-main-EasyComp- and then the number of images. And then the first page, which is the first page for each group, it's YB-first-EasyComp, then hyphen the number of images. And generally, you'll use the same layout. You'll just delete a few slots to put in your header text. And then you'll need to renumber the slots. So if you remove slots 1, 2, and 3, for example, you'll need to renumber so it starts with slot 1. And see the videos for how to do that It's really easy. It's just a one-click process basically. But those are the two files for how it's going to arrange the images. In this first page file, if you're using this optional file, you can have header text. You can actually have multiple text items if you want, but generally you'll just use one header text most of the time. And that header text will be YB group text. And then you can have the resize extension if you want to. For the text styling for the header text, if you want to change it, for example, the color or the layer style, you'll have to, or the font even, you'll have to do that in this first page template itself. You'll have to actually change it to what you want here, which is just one layer you have to change. Now for the text colors and layer styles, as well as the image colors and layer styles, you can customize those in the graphics file. Now, the graphics file serves a few purposes. First, you can put in a background. You can change the background color, or you can put in a background image file. And whatever it's saved with, it'll use that background for both layout files. The same as with class composites. Whatever is in the EasyComp-graphics file will use that background. That way you don't have to change multiple files. You can change it in one place. The other purpose it serves is under this EasyComp-styles folder. It's got to be under this folder. You can specify custom text styles for your image text, as well as the layer styles for the image slots themselves. And these text styles will be used to replace the styles and color for the text that's underneath your image slots. And that can be your first and last name, and it can also be the additional text item if you have that as well. That'll replace it for all of those. Now, how these work is whatever you select when you batch under this names dropdown, you have these custom styles starting with EasyComp-text-light. You have light and dark, and then you have the ones that are named custom. Whatever you select, it's going to look for a layer with this name. So that's what the layer has to be named. You got those 12 options there. And so, for instance, if I select the EasyComp-text-custom-05, it's going to use the layer with that same name, and it's going to use this layer style to put in for every single image slot in the text. If you want to change the text color, this is very important. Don't change the text color here or here when you do it. So don't just double click on the text and change the color there. That is not going to set the color of the text for how Easy Composites works. There's some technical reasons for this I'm not going to get into in this video, but this is not where you want to set the text color. What you want to do is in the layer style, use this color overlay, and this is where you'll set your text color. You can also use a drop shadow or any of your other layer style items you want to create an entire style. But for color, use the color overlay inside the layer styles. Now for the image slots, works the same way, and it's the one that's under just where it says style. Any layers with that same name, it'll use to replace the border around your image or any layer style you put in there. So for example, if I grab the one that says EasyComp Style Custom 5 with hyphens all caps, it's going to find this layer, and you can go in and use whatever you want for style. So for example, if I wanted to use a bigger border, let's say I want to move this border to the inside because I know that the gaps on this particular template are small, so maybe I want to keep those gaps reasonably wide, so I'll move that to the inside. You can do whatever you want with this. Just add a drop shadow just to have something to add for the demonstration. You can add inner shadow to give it some depth here. I don't know, just whatever you want to do with your layer styles. It'll transfer that entire style if you choose in the drop down. It'll find the one with that name and transfer the layer style. So pretty easy. I'm going to run a quick demo. I'm not going to put the custom background in because I'm going to show you a different way you can also put the background in. There's another option. I'm going to save this here. And let's close these. I've already got all my batch settings in I want to run. But the other place that you can add a background is there's a background button here. And if you add a background file from here, now this is a single layer file you're going to want to add. This is not selecting your Easy Comp Graphics PSD. This is just selecting a single layer. That will override the graphics file. So the hierarchy for how it selects the background, if you have something selected in the background button here, this is what it uses for the background. If you don't have anything selected there, it'll use whatever is in the graphics file if your template has a graphics file. And if there is no graphics file, then whatever is in your layout file becomes the background. So anyway, I'm just going to run this. I think everything should be... Oh, before I do that, I want to talk about, just real quick, how it's going to group the images, because this is important. So in the yearbook grouping, there's three options. There's YB group ID, and none. By default, it's set to YB group ID. If you select none, it's not going to group the images into groups. And so if you weren't running groups where you want to group headers for each grade, for example, just like this, you would select that to none. Then it's just going to take all of your images in the folder and it's going to sort by last name and then first name and just put them all in one continuous series. Then you've got two options if you want to group them. And generally it's the YB group ID, and I'll explain why there's two of them there. So in your data sheet, you can set up your data sheets to work with both class composites and yearbooks in the same data sheet. But generally, you're going to group differently with class composites versus a yearbook. So that's why there's two grouping columns. Now you can group however you want, and it is going to find all of the images that have the same name in that column and group them together. So, for example, I'm going to sort this by just the regular group ID, which is generally what you use for class composites. So if you wanted just to group your class composites by class, you could just use the teacher name. And as long as there's not two teachers with the same name, then it's going to group them all by all of the images that have the same text and build your class composites. Now, if there was two teachers with the same name, you'd have to put a number in front of one of the teachers to differentiate them from the other teacher. But for the most part, you can usually use your teachers to group those by class. Now, for yearbook, you may group them by class, you may not, but more common, I think, would be to group them by grade. So that's why there's two options here. And so let me sort this by YB group ID. So in this example, in the YB group ID, I've got faculty listed for all the teachers, and then all the students are listed by their grade. Now, when it builds your yearbook, it is going to first sort by the group ID, and then it's going to sort by last name and then by first name. So if you want a specific order on how the groups lay out, you'll need to figure out how to name them so they alphanumerically sort in the correct order. Now for first grade and on, it'll typically sort right because the number 1 comes before the number 2, which comes before the number 3. But if you want kindergarten and faculty in there, you'll need to put typically a 0 in front of those to force them to sort before the first grade. So if you sort in your data sheet, you can usually see how they're going to sort. So in this case, faculty will be the first group, and then kindergarten, then it'll go into first grade, and so on. So I'm just going to start this, and we'll see if it did what it was supposed to do. I'm going to name it Test Yearbook. And you can see it's bringing in those custom layer styles and the custom background that we selected based on how we changed that graphics file and for the yellow border, and then how we selected the styles we wanted, and then selected the background we wanted to import. Okay, so yes, that was a fairly long video. I apologize for that, but hopefully there was some good information there. I don't know if we have any questions here. I guess there's about a 10 to 15 second lag between our live stream and when you're seeing it. So we'll wait a little bit for the questions to come in, and then we can go live into Photoshop or whatever we need to do to answer the questions. Like the Maytag repairman here. You're too young to understand that reference, Alyssa.
I know some Maytag commercials.
Old 80s Maytag commercials.
Oh, no.
The washing machine repairman never had to do anything because they never broke.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, so Brian asked, modifications to template styling are easy composites. Yes. Don't know if I fully understand that question, but I will try to answer it. So I'm going to go to a screen share here. I hope this works. It's our first time being live, so we will see. Oh, yes. So, Alyssa, can you see my Photoshop here?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so I'm going to open the template file and just try to further explain this, and hopefully I'm answering the question that was asked. So in your yearbook, you've got, or in your template, you've got your pages where it has the layouts. Let me see if I can open all three of these actually. Okay. Hold on, I'm having difficulties with my Photoshop here. Okay. No, I don't need my Area 51 images. Okay, let's get Easy Composites pulled up here. All right, so this graphics file, if it is inside your template, you can have this set up with custom styles that are for your image and your text border. So when you run, let's say, for instance, on the names, you can choose any of your custom options here. But if you choose one, you have to have a name in your graphics file with that name for a layer. So it's going to look for, it all has to be under this Easy Comp Styles folder, but it's going to look for a layer with that same name that you have chosen in your batch. So it's going to look for example, this Easy Comp -text -custom 05. The only thing it's going to do is going to basically copy this layer style, and it's going to go in to pretty much all it's doing. It's copying and pasting a layer style. So the same thing with your graphics. If you select in your style, we'll go with number 5 again. It'll go into your graphics file when it runs, and for every single image, every single image slot is going to copy that layer style. So it's just a very simple operation it's doing in the background there. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Command Z here. It's going to go on your image and do that. And then you really can't see it because the background color, which I don't even. And you can see our layer style there. The reason why it's set up this way is because it would be very tedious to set up a template where you had to change the text or the border for every single slot. And in the case of class composites, as you know, unlike the yearbook, it's not just 1 or 2 PSDs. A class composite, you might have 30 or 40 PSDs in your template folder. So in order to set up a template for purple or yellow or red, it would be a lot of layers that change. And this enables you to set these up in just a couple of layers, and then in your batch, call those layers that get put into it. The only one that it doesn't do is the header text. It really can't use the same layer style because generally these are a lot larger font and they aren't going to display good with that. I don't have any way yet to do that, but that's just typically one layer in your first page. You just go in and before you made your yearbook, you'd have to go in and set up this particular text. You can set up as you want. I don't know if that answers the question. I'm going to jump out of my screen share here. I don't know. Please let me know if that answers the question because I'm not 100% certain I was. See, let me read the other questions. Modifying the overall template for YB are similar to modifying the templates for easy composites as far as backgrounds. So Brian Averett, your question is, yes. I'll share my screen here. So go back to Photoshop here. So in your graphics file, if you wanted to put in a custom background in here, or if you want to just change the color, you could put in your background or your color in this easycomp-graphics file, and it's going to use that if you don't select a background image here. I put this button in here because I know that a lot of people wanted an easy way to quickly change the background without having to update their PSD file. Because if you have a bunch of different schools that you're only going to be putting in a different background, you might have 20 or 30 schools, and it would be a pain to go in your PSD file and add in all of those layers and then resave that file. This background button will work for the class composites as well as the yearbook. Really, the yearbook mode is going to run exactly the same as the batch class composite mode for how it builds everything with respect to the graphics file and the background option. The only thing the batch mode does differently versus the yearbook mode is basically how it groups the images, as discussed earlier. The class composites puts all the images from a group on a page. The yearbook doesn't. It keeps the same layout and overflows to the next pages for those groups. That's really the only difference between those two. So if you already know batch mode, if you just understand the grouping part of it, everything else works exactly the same. Let's go back to, where am I at here? We've got the windows and the windows and the windows. Okay, let's turn that off. Hopefully that answers that question. So Vanita, is it possible to use an image there? Not sure I understand that question. Is it?
She said referring to the header image instead of text based on the CSV.
No, you have to, I mean, you could put an image in there and save your first, actually, no, I take that back. Because if it has to change from first grade to second grade to third grade, there is no way for it to swap images out that I can think of. So no. Maybe in the future we can build in more automation capabilities, but for now, no, unfortunately. Vanita, maybe a smart image. Have to think about this one for a moment. So pause while I think. I don't know. This has not been tested, but maybe there would be a way to trick it by putting, oh, I need to go to my live screen share, sorry. Let me get back here. So I don't know on this one for certain, but maybe if you could trick it by making this slot 1 where that image is on your first page, you could maybe feed it an image with transparency. No, I don't know, because it's going to use the layer style still. If you have a custom style, it's going to try to put that in. So I don't know. So at this time, probably not. It might work if you're not using a custom style and you set up slot 1 here without any styling, and you would have to force that image alphanumerically, call it 000 or something. I don't know. I'll have to think about that more. There could be a way. There's always ways to trick it to do things that it's not really intended to do. As you guys know who use SPA, there's always tricks to it, but I haven't really thought of that. So I'll put some thought to that later after the webinar and see what I come up with. Okay, so more questions. A question from Brian Averett. A second question was said to be available for modifying the background. The video showed a selection of the background in the plugin, but how is this done in the templates? If I didn't already cover that, I guess I will go through and try to explain this. So in your here, let's undo everything here. Can you see my screen, Alyssa?
Yeah, I can still see it, although we kind of covered it already.
Yeah, I guess that it was just the question of how is this done in the templates. So in your layout templates, there's these blank placeholder layers, your overlays, your images placeholder, and your background placeholder, and your styles placeholder. So the one's called style placeholder, background placeholder, and overlays placeholder. It's going to grab from your it's going to go into your graphics files, and it's going to find folders, these 3 folders: EasyComp overlays, EasyComp styles, and EasyComp background. And it's going to move each of these entire group folders into where those placeholder layers are. So this EasyComp background folder, this whole entire folder gets brought into this background placeholder. If you use a background file in the batch when you run it, it's going to put another layer above that folder. So if you say it was a PSD, you'll have both. You'll have in the background you selected here, and you'll have in the background from the folder from your graphics file, but it's just that you'll be seeing the background that's on the layer above, if that makes sense. All right, any more questions we have here? I think that's all the questions I see coming up. Let me check the chat to see if any questions are here. I don't see any more questions, so thanks everybody for attending. If you have any more questions, then send me a message. Hopefully this all made sense, and this was our first go around. Like I said, I only invited 8 people, so we only had, I think, 6 show up, but we're going to be doing some more of these in the future where we invite a lot more people. So if you want to attend a future one, if there's other questions that you have come up and you want to go to another one of these, we'll be doing several of these, particularly for the yearbook as well. So anyway, if there's no more questions, we are going to log off now. I'm going to check one more time. I don't see anything more. Thanks everybody for attending, and I'll be seeing you guys later.